Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you. So today we're going to talk about blood work for steroid and PED users. But before we get into that, I have to reiterate that I am not a doctor. Anything that I say in these videos is for your entertainment purposes only. I'm not advising nor condoning you to use any of the things that I say or talk about on these videos. And what you do with this information is completely and utterly up to you. So if you're going to be using any steroid, PED, etc., any performance enhancing compound, it is imperative for you to be monitoring blood work. And when I say that, I mean pre-cycle, mid-cycle, and post-cycle. Now why? Why do you need to go through all that trouble? Why do you need to do that? Well, pre-cycle obviously gives you a baseline on where you're starting out at. Mid-cycle is going to tell you how you're responding to the doses that you're running. You know, if you're running like Aromacin or Arimidex, how you're responding, you know, in terms of are you using too much or too little of an AI? Let's say you're running Tren or Deca and you're using Dostanex or Promi to control prolactin or vitamin B6. That way you can gauge on how you're responding. If you're running an oral steroid, you want to see how your liver values, kidney values, cholesterol, all of these things. And then post-cycle, obviously, you're going to do that, and you want to do that 4 weeks after you finish your PCT to see how you're recovering. So you can easily see how imperative all three of these are, because sometimes people go, I'm not doing that, I'm not. Well, you don't have to do anything. But I'm pretty sure you can understand the importance of me just explaining it right now. And you know, a lot of times people go, well, I've done this before, so I know. Well, not necessarily. Okay, because every time you run something, your body responds differently. You could have gotten something that's dosed higher or lower. You know, there's so many different things that factor into this. Your AI might not be, you know, quality, etc. I mean, there's so many different things. You never know. It's like getting your pool water checked to make sure there's enough chemicals in there. You got to keep checking it weekly, or else there could be an issue. Well, you don't have to do it weekly with your blood work, but it's the same sort of scenario. Now, people will say, you know, oh, well, my doctor this, my doctor that, you know, doesn't want to do this, doesn't want to do that, my insurance this. But that's why there's other options. If you can't get it from your doctor, if it's an issue, if it's costly, there's places online. Number one that comes to mind, privatemdlabs.com. All right. Now, there's some states that for some odd reason you can't use them, but there's other options out there too. All right. If you ever watch Shark Tank, Everlywell was on there. They actually mail you the kit at home and have you do it yourself. So there's options. If you search them out online, there's other options. Now, out of the country, I know people are going to ask me. I don't really have an answer to that. I know some guys like in Canada that have some recommendations and things like that, but you know, throughout the world and stuff, I can't really answer that right now. I don't really have the answers there, but in the United States, I do know plenty of places if you need help, but Private MD Labs is really the go-to for most. Now, how do steroids or PEDs actually affect your blood work? Well, many people out there are going to parrot information they hear without even being aware of whether their claims can be easily disputed or not, just with simple blood work. Blood work doesn't lie. Blood work doesn't care about bro science. Blood work doesn't care about anything. The numbers will not lie. All right? So when you use any sort of anabolic steroids, for example, the pituitary glands are going to react to exogenous hormones by going dormant. So as a result of this, your LH and your FSH, your luteinizing hormone and your follicle stimulating hormone, they're going to quickly drop, basically bottom out to zero, okay? You're going to see that, and don't freak out about that. That's normal, all right? Your body then will no longer produce testosterone on its own. So it's true that certain steroids can and will suppress you faster and harder than others. But what's also true with all of this is that all anabolic steroids are suppressive, aside from Proviron, which I really don't even basically consider one, and it's minimal suppression, and they're going to shut you down, all right? What does shut you down mean? What does suppressive mean? Because people are going to ask me that. Shut you down or suppression is what I just covered. It's going to make your testosterone stop producing on its own. That's what that means, all right? So depending on what compounds you're using, all right? And this is totally dependent. Your estrogen could rise significantly with something like D-bol, with Test, Trestolone, things like that. While other compounds like your DHT derivatives, your primobolan, your masteron, your winstrol, they'll inhibit estrogen. All right. Now, a compound like tren can strain your lipids like this. All right. And oral steroids, we know, are very toxic. They can hit your liver, your kidneys, your cholesterol. That would be basically winstrol, anavar, anadrol, D-bol, the list goes on and on and on. All right. So, and something like equipoise is known to cause a rise in your red blood cell count. So you're going to have to donate blood to actually help to control that. And also, one thing to keep in mind, if you're using trenbolone, it can give false readings on estrogen. I've seen people run in tren, come back with estrogen readings of like 200, 250, and just totally freak out. But it's a false reading. So you got to be aware of this. Now, let's talk about HPTA blood work. All right. So, the most important aspect of blood work, all right, for the start and anabolic steroid use is actually understanding how the HPTA works. So a properly functioning HPTA is going to feature pituitary glands that are producing luteinizing hormone, LH, like we just talked about, and it signals the Leydig cells in the testes to actually produce testosterone, which later converts into estrogen. Now, in natural conditions, this cycle is going to continuously repeat itself. But when you use anabolic steroids, SERMs, or other drugs, your HPTA functions are going to be altered, and it's going to be totally reflective within your blood work. So, unfortunately, out there, many people do fail to understand this and make the mistake of paying attention only to what total testosterone shows. But if there's a number that should be paid most attention to, it's the LH, your luteinizing hormone. All right, something that you need to really pay close attention to. So what we're going to do now is take a look at the numbers that you're going to need to understand when you run blood work on your HPTA and the normal ranges that, they should be at for a healthy adult and what they mean. So luteinizing hormone, number 1. Now, you're looking at, a score of like 3 to 8 when we're looking at luteinizing hormone. And it's produced by the gonadotropic cells within the pituitary glands. And its main function is actually signaling the body to produce testosterone. And it is the most important number to know if your HPTA is actually functioning well or not. A low level of LH when you're off cycle means that it's not functioning well. All right, and it's not producing enough testosterone. But there's no need to panic, all right, because this is the recovery phase and you just need to wait until your LH is fully recovered before starting your next cycle. Now, obviously, on cycle, like I said, it's going to bottom out and it's going to drop to right around 0 because your pituitary glands go dormant. Don't freak out or panic. That's normal. Then we've got your FSH, which is your follicle stimulating hormone, and we're looking at about 2.5 to, up to even 12 on those numbers. Now, it's produced by the gonadotropes of the pituitary glands. So, FSH works in synergy with LH, all right? And it regulates pubertal maturation growth. So, and it's going to also be, in the reproductive processes in the body. Now, like LH on your cycle, it's also going to drop near 0 and completely bottom out while you're on cycle. But if you're off cycle and it's low, this is another bad sign. So, once you start abusing steroids, you're going to notice that your FSH never returns to its original levels. Even though your levels of FSH can be attributed to getting older when they start to drop, steroid abuse is going to prevent a healthy number in the long term, and it might possibly, impact and reduce your chances of having children in the future. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Total testosterone. You're going to see different numbers on this. Doctors will tell you that a healthy range is even down to some will tell you low 200s. Generally, what you see is the higher 200s up to about 1050. I don't like to see people under 350. And I don't think it's necessary to be over 1,000. So what I always say is 350 to 950 or 350 to 1,000. Testosterone is a male hormone or androgen in the blood. All right, and it affects sexual features and development. Now, unlike LH and FSH, testosterone produced by our testes is produced by our testes or your Leydig cells. So you must keep in mind, and please don't forget this, this number fluctuates. It's the highest in the morning and it's the lowest in the evening. So you cannot panic if you test in the afternoon or in the evening because it's going to be at a lower point than what it would be in the morning. And mind, you're supposed to be fasted when you take this test in the morning as well. Now, understand this. As men age, the number's going to start dropping. It's just inevitable. You can't fight this. All right? And in fact, men who have low testosterone typically have problems with increased fat gain. They have an inability to build muscle. They have a lower libido. They could be depressed. They have all sorts of issues. They're lethargic and tired. So on the flip side, if you abuse steroids and your testosterone is too high for long periods of time, it can strain your heart and cause spikes in estrogen levels, causing estrogenic side effects. Let's talk about free testosterone. Now, free testosterone, we're looking at about a number of 30 to about 150. Now, this is going to be the ratio of your total testosterone, and it's actually considered your actual free testosterone, not bound. So typically, it's not worth the extra money to check because it will be a percentage of your total testosterone. So in other words, if your total testosterone is in range, then free testosterone will be as well, almost always. Not always, but almost always. The same goes for cases when it's high or low. Then we've got estradiol. Now, estradiol for men, 15 to 50. 15 is pretty low, 50 is pretty high. I always like to see people in the higher 20s or lower 30s. That seems to work really well for people. Everybody's different. Okay, everybody's different, but in general, that seems to work really well and be a good, number. Test aromatizes into estrogen in the body. So it's important to outline that the male needs estrogen to function. So I don't like to see people get their estrogen below 15. It can be really problematic for a lot of people. Everybody's different, but it's person to person specific. Now, when you get extremely high estrogen, there's the possibility of developing gynecomastia, having water retention, which will increase your blood pressure. So it's important to keep an eye on this and not let it get out of hand. I do want to talk about some other aspects of blood work now that you need to be monitoring. Those are the ones that everybody generally knows about, but there's definitely a bunch of other things that are of concern that you need to be aware of. You're going to see a ton of things that are tested for. And for the most part, they may not be impacted by anabolic steroid use, but anything that's out of range, it needs to be addressed. So, number one, RBC, red blood count. We're looking at like a 4.15 to 5.8, right around there. They can rise on anabolic steroids, especially with something like equipoise. But if this number gets too high, it can strain your heart health. So it's very important to give blood in order to thin out your blood. Glucose. Now, we're looking at about a 65 to 100 range here. If you did not fast prior to your test, this may come in high. So to get an accurate number, you need to fast a good 8 to 12 hours before you take this test. Anything over 100 is a huge red flag. And it figures over about 120 are a sign of something serious. So, if you ate a chocolate cake before getting your bloods and your numbers came in over, there's nothing to be alarmed about. So just keep that in mind. Now, then we've got your BUN, B-U-N, which stands for blood urea nitrogen. Now, nitrogen is a waste product. Oh, and the numbers on that, you want to be about between 6 and 20. Nitrogen is a waste product derived from protein breakdown in the liver. Now, a lot of weightlifters are going to have a higher BUN, and that's because of their diets and, the fact that they are actually constantly breaking down muscle and repairing it on a daily basis. So to get an accurate BUN number, you should stop working out at least a week prior to blood work. Otherwise, this number is going to be a little high. All right? Just be aware of that. Then there's creatinine. Now, we're looking at about 0.76 to about 1.25, right around there. If you're holding a lot of muscle mass, then this number is going to come in higher than the ranges. So be aware of that as well. Same as BUN. The values that are used by doctors are for the normal, everyday couch potato, not a weightlifter and bodybuilder. So in order to get an accurate figure, you would probably have to stop lifting for months and lose muscle mass. So disregard this number and consider a high level of creatinine okay. All right. Obviously, you don't want it crazy astronomical high, but it's going to be a little bit higher. Then we've got cholesterol. All right. Now, total cholesterol numbers under 200 are where you want to be. HDL and LDL stand for high-density lipoprotein and low-density lipoprotein, HDL being your good cholesterol and LDL being your bad cholesterol. All right? It's normal for anabolic steroids to, hurt your good cholesterol. It's normal. It's going to happen, and your bad cholesterol is probably going to go up. This is why it's important that you cycle off and on and do not abuse steroids. You do not want to mess with cholesterol like that. And lifestyle factors fit into there as well. Stress, lack of exercise, and poor diets can also lead to worse cholesterol. Then we've got your AST, and we're looking between 0 and 40. It's an enzyme found in the liver, heart, and muscle cells. AST can be strained on a cycle, so it's important that you protect it at all times. ALT, 0 to 44. It's another enzyme which is a signal of liver strain. And if this number's high, it's normal for it to rise when taking oral steroids. So you've got to support yourself. You got to protect your liver here. Liver's not the only thing that needs addressed, all right? And we're talking about BUN, creatinine, that's your kidneys. We've talked about cholesterol. All of these things get affected with steroid use. So you don't just need protection for your liver, as I've stated a million times. You need protection for everything, and all in one. Now, how do ancillaries affect blood work? Ancillaries like your protection, your aromatase inhibitors, your SERMs, your HCG, things like that. HCG will increase estrogen and testosterone while eventually dropping LH and FSH. Remember, HCG mimics LH in the body. It mimics it, which signals the pituitary glands to actually stop producing it. And this is why I tell people to never use HCG and PCT. All right? Why would your body produce LH when it thinks that you have too much already? It's the same thing like when you use testosterone and we were just talking about that, and things go dormant. Once you stop using HCG, testosterone and estrogen will drop, and LH and FSH will slowly start to rise up. Then we've got your SERMs, Clomid and Nolvadex. All right? When blood work is done while they're still active in the body, then you're going to have some misgivings. The reason when you take a SERM, all right, estrogen becomes blocked from cycling back into your pituitary glands, causing a drastic, sharp rise in LH testosterone while the drug is active in your body. Those who run blood work during this time are going to think they're recovered, but to get an accurate idea of where you're at during PCT, you have to wait a good 4 weeks before you test. Too many guys are running blood work while SERMs are in their system and they're not getting a proper reading, and then they're possibly not recovering properly. So you've got to wait it out. Now, aromatase inhibitors, of course, are going to affect your estrogen levels. Letrozole is the strongest, and it can drop your estrogen levels by more than 70 to 75% like this. All right? This is why people complain about the negative side effects of it. On the other hand, Aromasin and Arimidex are more mild, and for this reason, they're more popular. Now, SARMs. SARMs can affect your blood work as well, but suppression is not even near where we're talking about, any sort of steroid. They don't convert to estrogen either. So the way that they affect your blood work is going to be far different than steroids. Peptides, HGH, they're not suppressive at all. So they're not going to affect testosterone and things like that. You're going to be monitoring other things like your IGF levels, for example, possibly prolactin. So different PEDs are going to be, having issues that you need to look at in different aspects and regards. But regardless of what you're running, you've got to do blood work. Even if it's, SARMs, peptides, HGH, you should still be doing blood work and monitoring and seeing how things are going. So that's the blood work rundown for you. I know it's a longer video, but we had to touch on all of these things. So, I'm Dylan Gemelli, signing off.